Thank you for having me, and thank you, all of you, for allowing me to be here and share my story. I am not a professional speaker. I am just Jen, so maybe there'll be a little bit of entertainment in the story I have to tell you. So I do work for Abortion Survivors Network. I am their community engagement coordinator, and my job is to engage our community of survivors into activities, into building relationships. We like to have an atmosphere of love and compassion for one another. All of our stories, obviously, are very different due to the many different kinds of abortions that are out there. So, as I said, I work for ASN. I also am a speaker with Ambassador, and that is an absolute honor to be able to share my story. And I am one of 419 abortion survivors that have come to us in the last 10 years. And I have a story for you, and I hope it inspires you to continue the amazing work that I know you all are doing for life. So my stories, I found out I survived an abortion when I was 19 years old. I am 43 years old now, and I was out shopping with my adoptive mom. I knew that I was adopted at a young age and had a cool aunt that would show up from time to time and buy me candy and toys, whatever my little heart desired. So as a 19-year-old college student, I was visiting my adoptive mom, and we were buying college supplies, and I kind of challenged her and said, hey, tell me something I don't know about myself. Something goofy I did when I was a kid. And I believe in that moment, God came in that truck that we were sitting in. And over the years of probably guilt and shame of her holding on to a story, that is what spilled out, that I had survived an abortion. I had survived a vacuum aspiration abortion, which is exactly how it sounds, a small tube being inserted and being used as a suction, a vacuum, to vacuum out the baby. So this would have happened in the spring of 1978. So I listened to my adoptive mom share the story, and as a 19-year-old girl who didn't know the Lord at the time, I began to cry and was completely overwhelmed with emotions I didn't know how to process. And understanding her mistake she made in telling me this while we were on a shopping trip, she said, no, please stop. Don't cry. It's okay. You're here. Be done. And so I did. I built up my wall. I wiped off my tears, and I didn't deal with my story for 10 years. During this 10-year period, I found Jesus. I got married. I had 3 beautiful, amazing children. But I did reach a point as both a mother and a wife where I did not feel I was being the best that I could be, that I had wanted to be. So one day, I was at a women's prayer group at my church, and one of my pastors got up and shared how she had been adopted and saved from a drug-infested home. And I thought, wow, I was adopted too. Maybe I could share that and have something to bring to this amazing, group of women. So I got up and got before the microphone for the very first time as a new Christian, sharing a small testimony. And I definitely did share that I was thankful I had been adopted by a wonderful family. But in that, what came out was that I had survived an abortion attempt. And the entire room was silent, and I was horrified that I had shared this thing I had gone through, because I didn't want others to know that someone had found me so completely unwanted when I hadn't even had the opportunity to make a mistake yet. I didn't want others to know that because I didn't want to not be accepted by society, by my church, by my husband, my children. And so it came out. And it obviously was a deep-seated trauma. And as we all know, the traumas we experience, we should never allow them to stay hidden, right? God does not want us to live that way. God is a God of life, and He is a healer. So as this came spilling out, the room was silent. I was horrified. My pastor came over to me and just wrapped me in her arms. And I knew in that moment that I was loved, and that I had just divulged this horrible secret in a safe room. I knew that every woman in that group was praying for me and loved me. So after this time, probably about 2 years, I began to think, okay, I'm not okay. I need to take care of this, right? And one of the women that was in this prayer group worked with our local pregnancy center. And she told them about my story. And by this time, I had become a licensed minister in my church and was working with the youth as a youth leader. And she came up to me and said, Jen, you know, I let them know about your story. Is that something you would possibly share publicly? And I'll be honest, at this time, I hadn't talked with anyone really about my story. I was just praying and giving it to God to heal, because I had no idea Abortion Survivors Network existed. I had no idea that there was another abortion survivor. I honestly believed I was the only one who this had happened to. And that's why the shame and guilt was consuming me with this story. So for whatever reason, I told her, yes, of course I will. And I thought that was kind of silly, because that wasn't my intention to become a speaker from this place of pain, right? We never expect our pain to put us in a place of purpose and of servanthood. But God, right? God's ways are never our ways. So I did have the honor of going to that pregnancy center, of being interviewed, and they asked me to be their speaker for their fundraising gala that year. And this was about 8 years ago. So a few years passed after that, and I thought, well, that was cool. Now what? What do I do with that? Because I just couldn't let go of it. So one day I was in the bathroom scrubbing the floor and cleaning up after my children. And I was listening to some worship music and just having some time to myself. And I heard the Lord in my heart, how he speaks to us here. And he says, you need to forgive her. And as I sat scrubbing the floor, I said, oh no, we're not doing this. That's not fair. That's not fair to me. And again, you need to forgive her. And I put that scrub brush down, and I just started crying, because I still didn't feel it was fair. I didn't do anything wrong, and most victims don't do anything wrong, correct? And in that moment, his love just came over me, and I didn't have the feeling or the emotion to forgive her, but I did say the words. And by saying the words, I forgive my birth mom, the Lord began to heal me. And he healed me in a way I never would have expected. And in that moment was my first step in really going towards my purpose. You know, every one of us has a purpose. There's a reason why we're here. And I know there's millions and millions of people on this earth with us now, having lived here before us, will live here after us. But we are all very unique. There is a purpose for each one of us, right? God is real, and he absolutely loves to rescue us, including the unborn. You know, every one of those lives, my life, your lives, those are his lives. Those are the apple of his eye, every one of us unique. And it's hard to remember that because there's so many of us. And we're not all just Christians. We're not all just the easy ones to minister to or to love. There's so many people, as we saw this morning at the Supreme Court, who need love but are really difficult to love. But yet he loves them, and he calls us to minister to them and be God's hands extended, right? Number 2, forgiveness was the key to moving from my pain into my purpose. I forgave my birth mom, and I can honestly say to you today that I have no reservations in my heart against her. I don't even blame her, Because to be honest, it was the 70s. To her, it was healthcare. I know it was. She was an alcoholic that had to leave her home at an early age due to verbal abuse. She had a lot going on. So I know in her heart, she thought she was doing the right thing. How can I be mad at her for that? Post-abortive women are victims just like me. They fall into a lie that abortion is health care. And that's exactly what the pro-choice movement wants you to believe. But it is not health care. These are lives just like me and you and every one of those people that find themselves in the pro-choice movement. Number 3, God is a God of life and not death. And this is something we know. That's why we fight for life, right? Because that is who God is. And that's what he's called us to do. So my purpose is to fight for those with silent screams. Because 43, maybe and a half years ago, I had those same silent screams. And no one but God heard them. And as a survivor, it's humbling to be here because my life was saved. And my life wasn't any better than anyone else's. But God is God, and he does things the way he's going to do them, and so much of him is a mystery, and I believe he keeps it that way, so we'll stay humble and continue to search after him and trust him no matter what. So I would challenge everyone today online and in this room, what is your purpose? The pain that you may have experienced in the past, where has it led you to today? And I would gather to say that many of you either know someone who has had an abortion, or maybe perhaps you've had one yourself. And I want to address that real quick, because if anyone is in this room who has had an abortion, I would love to hug you. I would love to pray with you, because that's what my network is about, Abortion Survivors Network. We don't just fight for survivors of abortion and leave everyone else over here to be taken care of by another network. Of course, our main focus is people like me, but we love all the victims. And to be honest, this entire society is a victim to the lie that abortion is going to take care of your problems, because we all know it's Jesus. It's God, right? So this weekend was my first March for Life. I'm from California. I don't come out on the East Coast too often, and I've seen it on TV before, but I didn't know what to expect. I'll be honest, I thought, oh, this is a great pro-life conference I'm going to take part in and be with amazing people. And talk about amazing people, I have to go off here for a second. Thursday night at the Youth Summit, you guys have some amazing children. Anglicans are my favorite. During worship Thursday night, you could just sense the heart of God loving the youth, but then the youth loving him right back. I was just sitting there going, oh, this generation. And I know I'm a former youth pastor, and that's part of my excitement that comes out. But wow, thank you. Thank you online, all of you who are raising children and grandchildren to serve the Lord in this church. Thank you. It was my honor to be there. So as I said, my first March for Life. And it's a little weird being a survivor of an abortion. But I was there holding my sign, which reads, "Babies survive abortions, and I am one of them." And it's front and back. So while we marched, people could read it, to the side of me, behind me. And so many kids, so many youth understood it. And I was thanked on multiple occasions by kids saying, wow, thank you so much. And I'm probably going to go home to California tonight and cry and process everything I took part in this weekend. But it was my absolute honor to be here and to continue the fight for life with all of you. So you can find, I was only able to give you a little bit of my story, but you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Abortion Survivors Network, and of course I'm with Ambassador as well. Again, thank you. Thank you for having me here.